In your opinion, how much of a health risk does it pose to smoke a pack or more of cigarettes every day?
I'd say it's a great risk. It's been pretty beaten into my brain by my mother to never smoke.
It poses a very high health risk.
I think people are crazy to smoke now.
And I think a pack a day probably would put you in a higher risk. Not an extreme risk, but maybe certainly an elevated risk.
Constant abuse on your lungs must be quite detrimental over time.
Cigarettes are horrible for you. I wish I would have never started.
As you can imagine, in the past 10 years, smoking in the U.S. has actually gone down quite a bit, but our researchers are finding that people's perceptions are changing, and fewer people now think that smoking poses a great health risk than they did 10 years ago. What do you think about that?
Well, that's unfortunate.
I find that surprising. I do.
Yeah, this doesn't sound real.
I think all the evidence points to the fact that it's not good for you to do that.
It doesn't surprise me, especially given how PC and chill we try to be about other people's choices.
Perhaps if there's a resurgence, it's because there's a lack of an outreach to keep up that common knowledge about how damaging smoking can be.
So we've heard a lot of differing opinions about the risks that smoking confers. And frankly, we were surprised by some of our findings from the study, showing that the risk perceptions of smoking in the United States are decreasing. And the change was about 1%, which may not sound very large on the face of things. But whenever you look at things from a population level perspective, that's approximately 3 million Americans who no longer perceive smoking to be as risky as they did about 10 years ago. We think that the rapidly evolving tobacco marketplace and the introduction of novel nicotine and tobacco products like e-cigarettes may potentially play a role in people's changing perceptions of the risks of smoking and tobacco use. And we're going to continue to investigate how those factors impact people's perceptions.